I just don't think you guys understand the implications this case is going to have in literature as a whole, as a genre. Because, like, I think this is one of the many cases that we will be seeing in the future. Like, in the next year, we're going to see a lot of these cases, specifically in fantasy, in science fiction, and in every male dominated field within literature. Like, mark my words, this is the first of many. I assume many of you have seen it already, but for those who don't have, Neil Gaiman, famous, renowned British author, has finally pronounced himself regarding the sexual assault allegations that he has been receiving for the past few months. And as someone who creates content within the literary genre, I have to say that there is a lot that I want to talk about, and there are a lot of things that I want to mention because honestly, as someone who is interested in authors specifically, I have to say that I am disappointed, but I am not surprised. First things first, obviously, and as always, there is a disclaimer. So, we are going to be talking about really intense topics such as sexual assault, BDSM practices, and things like that. So, if you're not comfortable with that, please make sure you scroll because this is going to get heavy, right? And also, another disclaimer is that these are just allegations. Obviously, I can't say they are true or not because I am not involved, as many of us that are talking about this. But I think it's important that we discuss this situation, especially taking into account how important Neil Gaiman is for the literature, well, for the literary genre, but also at the same time for the specific genres in literature that I am interested in, which is fantasy, science fiction, and gothic horror in this sense, right? So Neil Gaiman is an author that comes out quite a lot, specifically in these genres. So I feel that I need to talk about this, taking into account that these are the topics that I am interested in. First things first, allow me to introduce you the main character of this story, who is Neil Gaiman. For those who don't know, he is one of the most renowned British authors at the moment. He has been active for at least 40 years, and he has created, well, he is the author of books like Coraline or Good Omens, American Gods, comics like The Sandman. He is the top of the top, right? Like, at least within this generation, everyone knows Neil Gaiman, and he has touched many genres as of science fiction, horror, fantasy, high fantasy, even comedy as well. So yeah, he is like the equivalent of William Shakespeare at, like, in this era, in this generation, right? He's like George R.R. Martin and Neil Gaiman. They are both like very well connected and have a lot of power within the literary genre. Basically, the summary of the case is that Neil Gaiman has received 8 different sexual assault allegations from 8 different women in different timelines. So one dates around the 80s and until 2022. Basically, the main thing is that they all 8 women are accusing Neil Gaiman of sexual assault, sexual torture, and also manipulation of power, of his power, in order to get sexual favors. Those are the main allegations. And basically, the timeline that we see in this case is that in 2024, 2 women collaborated with Tortoise Media in order to create a 6 episode podcast about the case and about their experiences with Neil Gaiman and everything that happened when, like, around the time where they met Neil Gaiman and what he did to them. Honestly, the podcast is quite gruesome. There is a lot of information that is put in them, and obviously these episodes are just genuinely disgusting, in the sense of not the way that they talk about the cases, but the things that Neil Gaiman allegedly does to them. Now, there is a lot that we need to cover on this case. The first thing that I have to mention is that there are a lot of articles that are coming back and forth from how many women are actually doing these allegations, or what happened in these encounters, or who was involved in what, right? So the first thing that I have to mention is that I believe at the moment we have 8 women that have come forward with these allegations. I've seen 5 as well, but I think at the moment there's around 8. Then also the second part is the sexual acts that these women allegedly mention are very, very gruesome. We're talking about raw sex to BDSM practices, and very, very hard and raw BDSM practices like masters and things like that. Like, there's a lot that I will mention as well. And then the last topic, the last part, is who was involved where, right? So there are some of the women that have also come out, that also came out mentioning that Amanda Palmer, who is Neil Gaiman's former wife, so yeah, they are divorced. I think they are divorced. Maybe I know they are separated, but I think they are going through the divorce at the moment, or they have just divorced. But yeah, they said some of the women also said that Amanda Palmer was also involved in it. I want to discuss the allegations as well. Obviously, I don't want to give much details, and obviously, I haven't been in that situation. I am not one of the accusers, so therefore my context is very limited. But for the research that I have done, these 8 women have what were assaulted allegedly in different eras of Neil Gaiman's time, right? So we see that one of the victims has mentioned that this happened in the 80s, whereas the earliest case that I know of at the moment is 2022, right? So as I mentioned before, these allegations, or the things that these women are saying, are disgusting at the least. Okay, we're talking about they were mentioning how these women were forced to have sex with Neil Gaiman just mere hours after meeting him. Also, at the same time, they all say that he was in a position of power regarding their relationship, right? So one of them was his nanny, so the child's, like, Neil Gaiman's child nanny. The other one of them also said that she was a fan, and then I think another one also mentioned that she was connected with him in some sort of way, but I think he was also in a huge position of power against her, or like compared to her, right? And honestly, like, I think this is just the one thing that like also pisses me off at the same time, is the fact that all the women, and like this is the thing that makes me very sad about Neil Gaiman, and is the fact that all women not only mention all the sexual assault that they had to endure with, but also at the same time they mention that he was always in a position of power, not only sexually but also personally, right? These women were in very delicate situations when they met Neil Gaiman, and he made sure to use that. And we are not talking about the regular schmegular sexual assault cases that we see that are still bad, don't get me wrong. We are talking about this is this is the trenches, right? We're talking about him forcing himself on those women even mere hours after meeting them. We're also seeing him like being fully naked and flashing himself in front of these women, him forcing himself in all cavities. So we're not talking only about like down there and like on the back door. We're talking about us, like we're also talking in front, right? We also saying him using butter as lube in order to force himself better. Then we're also saying that he forced like master slave relationships between those women that he had a clear power with, right? Or like he had that clear power difference between. Also, we're saying that he was using bodily fluids like vomit as a way introduce these bodily fluids into his sexual practices. So we're talking about disgusting things that he's doing, right? And also I have to mention that I don't care, or like I don't give a shit what you're using or what you like to do on your free time or when you get freaky, right? You are consenting, you are a consenting adult, so therefore you can do whatever you want as long as you consent and the partner or your partners consent as well. But we're saying that clearly, that like the difference between these things that he's doing and the things that you do on your free time, even if they are the same, is that these women were not consenting. Getting back the attention to Neil Gaiman rather than the women and the disgusting acts that he committed, I have to say that I decided to talk about this case and to make this video because of the statement that he made. Obviously, I don't have the full context again, but there is something just so sus about everything he said and the way that he said it, right? Like, it just shows that he is a great author and that he knows exactly what to say, what to say in order to convey emotions, right? But you can't fool me. You can't fool us, right? I know exactly what you're trying to do, and I know that you have very nasty lawyers. So the first thing, I have my notes over here, so sorry if I'm not looking at you guys. But basically, the main thing, so the first thing that made me think this is sus is, he first started saying, out of respect for the people who were sharing their stories and out of a desire to not draw attention even more, out of a desire not to draw even more attention to a lot of misinformation, I've now reached to the point where I feel that I should say something. So the first thing is that, like, he's conveying, or like he's showing that he has respect for these women, right? Or that he has respect for these stories. Then he also says, there are moments I have recognized and moments I don't. I'm far from a perfect person, but I have never engaged in non-consensual sexual activities with anyone ever. And then I think this is the cherry on top, right? He says, I was emotionally unavailable while being sexually available, self-focused, and not as thoughtful as I could or should have been. At the same time, as I reflect on my past and as I re-review everything that actually happened as opposed to what is being alleged, I don't accept there was any abuse. To repeat, I have never engaged in non-consensual sexual activity anymore. Pause. Tell me that this not sounds sus. Like, this sounds sus. And for me, at least personally, it seems that he's saying, first, I respect these women, I respect these stories, so they have the space to talk about these. But two, I don't agree with what they said, because everything I did, which I don't deny, so everything that he did, all these disgusting acts, he doesn't deny that he has done them. He denies that they were non-consensual. That is the main part, right? So he's saying, I am not perfect, I am a disgusting person, but so they are. And this is what the juicy part of the story is. Mark my words, because this is where we're gonna see the whole turmoil, right? Because he's not denying that he's done all of this. The only thing that he's denying is that it was non-consensual, right? And this is the one thing that we also, like, we all struggle as society, right? And especially legally, because there is no way that we can just, well, there are some ways, but it's very, very hard to prove that things were not consensual, unfortunately. And also at the same time, we see a lot of shaming on women regarding sexual acts in general, because obviously patriarchy, right? So in this sense, I think the fact that in his statement, he mentioned that he doesn't deny, or like he just basically mentions that he has done all of these things, but the relationships that they had were consensual, because like when he goes into court, or like when they have like these back and forth with the judges for the next few months, right? he will have to prove, like, he won't have to prove that he hasn't done these things, or that he didn't have these non-consensual relationships. They, the women, have to prove that this was non-consensual, which is way harder, right? Because it is very easy for everyone to assume that this was consensual, but it is very hard to prove that it wasn't, that it was a rape, right? And also at the same time, it also shows that he is very aware of what he did, right? Or allegedly, obviously, again. But yeah, I think he knows exactly what he's doing, and the lawyers that he has are nasty. Like, I know that this is gonna change. Like, this case is gonna change the way that we see all these male authors in literature, because many more cases are gonna come back. Like, we're gonna see a lot of these things. One thing I believe will change the whole case is Amanda Palmer's position, right? So, as I told already, Amanda Palmer is Neil Gaiman's former wife, which has also been accused by some of the women as she being aware that these situations were happening, or even she being the accomplice, right? Or being also the abuser. I think one of the women said that she was having sex with both, because obviously they have an open relationship. But yeah, she was having sex with both of them, and then basically Amanda, gave these women to Neil Gaiman for him to abuse, right? I don't know how true that is. That's one of the things I saw in one specific article. But yeah, basically, I think she will change the course of this case, right? And also, she has pronounced herself as well. She has released a statement where she says that she's horrified about all of these things that people are saying, but she has no comments about it at the moment, because she's focusing on their child, or the protection of their child. Honestly, I don't know much about Amanda's situation, because I think it could be either two things, right? It could be either she is as much guilty as him, in the sense of the perpetrating the abuse towards these women, and just not only give him victims, or give him prey, but also at the same time giving him the power to have this control. Or B, it could also be that she is a victim as well. We don't know, right? We have no idea if she was coerced into these behaviors as well, or if she was coerced into doing all these horrible things. We'll see. But I feel like it's gonna be B. I think the fact that they divorced around that time as well, like they divorced around 2022, and she mentioned that it was like amicable, friendly, whatever, and then she has completely separated herself from him. I have the feeling that it was B, and then she realized, oh my god, this is gonna be bad. No, I think it's gonna be, I'm not sure, I just don't know what the case is gonna be, or like what was her involvement on all of these. But I have the feeling that she's gonna say, I don't know if she was as guilty as well, but I have the feeling that she's gonna say that he was forcing her to do all these things just to protect herself and to protect the child. Now, you might have been wondering, why am I disappointed but not surprised? And it's because this is not new. This is nothing new in the literary genre. Like, if you have any knowledge of male authors, specifically within fantasy science fiction, you know that all of them were pieces of shit. Like, the vast majority of the classic literary authors are abusive at the least, right? And they also racist. They are the worst people ever, right? And obviously you can say, oh, it was like the time, or like it was the mindset and the culture at the time, so therefore we shouldn't be judging them, especially if they are dead already, because they can't deny these allegations, or they can't be better. I have to say that we also find authors that are alive and well, or that have been alive until very recently that also have these kind of allegations, right? Like I can give you many examples around here, and it's just like it gets to a point where it's like I am not surprised that these things are happening, because we know how men behave when they have power, or how many men behave when they have power, right? And it's that they use it for their own gain, and their own gain is usually sexual. Like they always do these things. We see it in cinema, we see it in art, we see it in music, we see it everywhere. Literature is not free of sexual assault for women. We are never free, we will never be free and safe from anywhere. And now, this is one of the things that makes me really upset, and it's about the fact that obviously, if you enjoy male-dominated genres like high fantasy and dark fantasy, science fiction, horror, gothic horror, you will see a lot of cases or a lot of stories that come with some sort of sexual abuse. 99.9% of these assaults are towards women made by men, right? And usually they are used as a way to basically give some sort of power to the woman, right? Just to create a backstory of why this woman is evil, or why this woman is so strong because she powered through, right? Like this is nothing new, and it's just like repeating story all over and over and over again, right? Which is very sad. But yeah, there are a lot of authors that use rape or that use sexual assault as a way to thicken the plot, basically. And it's just like it gets to a point where it's like it's so used that it makes me kind of makes me suspicious of these authors, right? Because it's like we see how basically these authors create these stories based on their fantasies, right? And like basically their mindsets. And obviously I'm not saying that everyone that writes about rape is a rapist, because that is simply not true, right? But I see, like, something that I see is that I see a lot of connections or a lot of correlations between male authors that used these violent sexual fantasies and then became sexual abusers themselves, right? And also at the same time, it's like when you are an author, or like when you are a creator in general and creates these kind of stories, like it gets into a point where your mindset, your reality, right, and your fantasies, all the things that you are created, that slowly get mixed up, right? Because you're spending hours and hours creating these stories, and also at the same time they are part of who you are, right, as an author, or as an author, or as a person. And it's just like it makes me wonder, why do you need to keep writing about sexual assault, or why do you use these violence against women constantly in your stories? And it's just like, is it either because you think that women cannot be strong if they don't have this sort of setback, in the sense of women who deal with sexual assault, or that have gone through sexual assault, are stronger, so therefore are better? Or are you viewing this kind of sexual assault as a way of you fulfilling your fantasy that you can't really do in your real life, because you know that you will get in trouble, or that you know that it's a crime and it shouldn't be done? So it's just like, it just makes me wonder, why do these authors keep using these? And also at the same time, why is it that the vast majority of all these like famous writers that are within these genres are just so disgusting as men? And it's because they have power, right? They have the power to do whatever they want with these people, specifically with female fans. Because first of all, as someone who is interested in these genres, right, I know that this is a male dominated field, and I know that there are many people out there, or like many fans out there, who are just fucking insults, that are just living in their mom's basement and have no contact with women or with other people anywhere. So they just have a very biased reality, or like vision of what women are, or women that are interested within these genres are, right? Or how they look like, or how they behave. Also at the same time, there are a lot of parasocial relationships between authors and and fans, because when you get to write or when you get to read what other people have have written, right, you find yourself in a situation where it's like you think that you know this person and that you know this author, and also these stories create emotions within you, right, and create an invisible bond between you, the story, and the author that the person that has written the book, right? So then you find yourself within like this like amorous triangle, or like this triangle where you have these two this bond, or like this creation between you guys, and you think that you know the author way more than you actually do, right? Because at the end of the day, if you read the stories, or if you follow the author and follow their content, you get to a situation where you think you know the author, and it gets to a point where it's like you think you know them, so therefore when you get to meet them, you already have these bias against them, from him or like from them, right? And you say like, oh yeah, I know this person, I know this author, I know that they are great, their stories are great, so therefore I know they are a great person. But then when you get into the author's mindset, right, like how I view it is that they see themselves as these men of power, right, as these men that have a say within their genre, and that they are viewed as gods by their fans, right? And then they go to these conventions, or they meet their fans, and then they see that there are these people, or like these women, that venerate them as gods, right? That venerate and just pray for everything that they do, because they are so passionate about the stories that they write, right? And then they know that they have the power for A to just use these funds, B to have sex with them, and then C to cover it, because they have the money and the means to do it, right? So then you find, like, as an author, you find yourself thinking, okay, so there's this person, there's this girl, this fan that absolutely loves me, that I know that wants to have sex with me, and also I know for a fact that if something happens, I can cover it up and no one will believe her, because I am this incredible man that everyone loves, right? So that's why I have sex with her. I just do my way, right? Just like fulfill these sexual fantasies that I have. And then because I know that she won't do anything, and that she will be happy that she just had sex with me, right? And then if something happens, I'll just make her sign an NDA, and then nothing will happen. And then I can just give her some money for reparations, like he did in one of the cases. So it just like gets to a point where it's like they also don't recognize the things that they are doing, right? That doesn't excuse them, because that is still sexual assault and that is still rape at the end of the day. But it's just like it gets to a point where it's just like they don't realize what they are doing, or they are not aware of the consequences of their actions. And if they are, that is way worse. Like if you are aware of if you are aware that even though you have the power to do these things, you still want to do it, or you still have this imbalance of power between you and your fan, and you still go through it, and you can have sex with your fan, that's okay. Like if you have consensual relationships, that is okay. But if you get into a point where it's just like you have to sign an NDA and you have to give money to someone in order to pay for the post-traumatic stress that she is suffering because of all the actions that you did towards her, maybe that was non-consensual, and maybe you're also aware that it was non-consensual, and you just went your way and you just decided to do whatever you wanted. And then the last question that you guys might have as well is, why do I think this case is way bigger than it is at the moment? And it's because if Neil Gaiman goes down and he is considered guilty, I can tell you for a fact that many authors will also go down. Like, I don't know the cases. I don't know. I am not involved in these situations, or I'm not involved within this circle of people. But I can tell you for a fact that this is gonna go down. I just feel it in my gut, right? Because first of all, Neil Gaiman has absolute incredible power within the literary genre in general, but also in the specific genres that he is. Like, he's considered a god, right? And I know for a fact that he has many other connections within Hollywood, within other authors of other genres, but also within the same genre, right? Like authors that are also considered gods as well, or like in the same level as him. And if he goes down, I know that there are a lot of connections that we can do over here. And I think, and this is something that happens very often, right? We see all these like men's circles where if someone is accused and judged for sexual assault, many others will also be considered for sexual assault, because this is how boys club work, right? We see how men protect each other's backs in order to just keep using the power, and also to keep abusing women and abusing people that are oppressed, right? Like, we see all the time. This is nothing new. So I think this is going to be the Harvey Weinstein case for literature, right? If Neil Gaiman gets judged, many other authors, not even mediocre, but also people that we think are gods, are gonna go down and are gonna pay for the consequences. I can tell you that now. We'll see in a year what happens. So this is all the information that I have about the case for now. We'll see how this case pans out in the next few months. But there are some things that I have to say before we leave this video. The first one is that you should never use your power in order to abuse people. You should never abuse people in the first place, okay? Like, I feel like this is rule number one of humanity and how to be a decent human being, which apparently no one is at the moment. But yeah, you shouldn't be using your power, or you shouldn't be abusing people. The second thing that I have to say is that if you're defending Neil Gaiman, or if you're saying that he's innocent, or that these relationships were consensual, obviously we don't have the whole information, so he could be innocent. But I think personally, if he's not denying all these actions that he has committed, but he's saying that the case was like all these encounters were consensual, if you think it's okay for forcing someone to like orally fuck you until they vomit, and then you force them to eat their own vomit, I think you should clock in your noggin, and I think you should be looking at yourself a little bit more and realizing like certain things, because maybe you need therapy. And then the third thing is that if you if you are a victim in one of these situations, one of these cases, I support you. I'm so sad and I am so sorry that you were in this situation. Please make sure that you get help, and if you feel like you can, please speak up, because we need to hear these stories. These stories should not be silenced, and these people should pay for the things that they did to you. So yeah, these are the three things that I have to say. If you want to have a discussion about this, or about the whole case, or if you have any more information, please make sure that you put it in the comments, or you can talk to me in social media. And yeah, please don't adore and don't venerate these authors, because we know for a fact that many of them are not what they seem to be. And yeah, I hope you have a great rest of your week, and thank you for watching the video again. Bye guys.